This Thanksgiving morning on Breakfast Bible Bites, I'd like to share a special thanks to Katherine Britton as I share her narrative on a child's Thanksgiving. We read in John 10:10 where Jesus said, "I have come that you may have life and have it to the full." And the Israelites avowed in 1 Chronicles 29:13, "Now our God, we give you thanks, and we praise your glorious name." Mrs. Burton writes, "Sometimes it takes a child's sermon to remind me of what's important. Thanksgiving should be a simple affair." But my adult brain had overcomplicated this hard attitude without much effort. The past few months had been filled with many moments where I had said, "So far, so good," but doubted the future. The provision at hand were enough to be sure, yet I wondered if what looked like adequate provision today would diminish over time, and I doubted God's intention to replenish what I used up. On Sunday, I listened to the children's sermon with special attention when the kids talked about the Mayflower and the Pilgrims and the first Thanksgiving Day. Each child quickly displayed their knowledge of Pilgrims and Indians, including Squanto. The incredible dynamic that played out in the harvest season. Their teacher slowly engaged their descriptions to include the previous winter's deaths and desperately short food supply, the hope of a new planting season, and the summer's withering drought. By the time harvest rolled around, crops had been gathered in, not in abundance, but certainly sufficient compared to the previous year. The Pilgrims knew it and reveled in the adequacy of their harvest. Edward Winslow, one of the only primary sources of the day, he wrote about this. "Our harvest being gotten in, our governor sent 4 men out fowling, that we might, after a special manner, rejoice together. After we gathered the fruits of our labor, the 4 in one day had killed such fowl as, with a little help from outside, served the company almost a week, at which time amongst other recreations, we exercised our alms. Many of the Indians were amongst us, and amongst the rest was their greatest king, Massasoit, with some 90 men in his service, whom for 3 days we entertained and feasted, and they went out and killed 5 deer, where they brought to the plantation and bestowed on our governor and upon our captain, as well as others. And although it was not always so plentiful as was at the time with us, yet by the goodness of God we are so far from want that we often wish you partakers of our plenty." Almost 400 years later, I stand convicted by Winslow's words. The man had stared death in the face and had little idea of what future lay in store for the Plymouth colonists. In spite of that, he had literally tasted God's provision and found himself satisfied. The meal was so filling, he wished that even if be not always so plentiful, we often wish you partakers in plenty. I wish I had Winslow's faith to happily look at today's provision and consider each simple wonder. We are so far from want in those moments. We serve a faithful God who is little more than enough to fill our needs. It takes the praise song which says, "All of you is more than enough and all for me. For every thirst and every need you satisfy me with your love, and all I have is in you is more than enough." Happy Thanksgiving. As you tally up the things that make you thankful, consider Edward Winslow's observation of God's faithfulness. Do you see the abundant life laid out before you? Colossians 3:17 writes, "And whatever you do, in word or in deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, giving thanks to God the Father through him."